Hi, my name is Christina Stevens, and I am here to tell you a little bit about my family history and how it all got started. Most people think the only people they have to give credit to are their parents for coming into this world, but there are way more ducks that have to fall into place for the end result of me coming into this world. The big question, who am I? Where did I come from? And where am I going? Well, first we're going to look at who am I and where did I come from? Let's jump into that time machine and go back and see where all my ancestries came from and where they traveled from. So first off, what I learned through this experience of looking into my family history is that I am just one big melting pot of different ethnicities, but majority I am Norwegian and German. So first we're going to take a first step on my mom's side and see what their family brought into my ethnicity. First we're going to look into my mom's side of the family. This is Kathy Stevens. Well, she used to be known as Kathy Talley, which is her maiden name. This is Wilbert Talley, my grandfather, my mother's father. And his family came over from Germany. Started off with Kenneth and Nerl Talley, my great-great-grandparents, farmers in Germany, 4 kids. They moved to America / the Kenosha, Wisconsin area for farming. When talking with my grandmother, she explained to me that my grandfather would tell her how they came to America because they left Germany for religious freedom. Talleys were strong Catholics, and when the Catholic Church was overruled by the government, Wisconsin was their choice for settling down and due to the farm lands available, which meant continuing what he was doing in Germany. Religion meant a lot to the Talley family. The family structure was very strict, and education was very high on the list of importance. When I asked my Nana why, she told me because that is how you raise successful men and women. With their strong, direct personalities, that is what they did. Within the Talley family, there are dentists and nurses and lots of medical field jobs. We continue to raise strong family members, and is exactly what started when Kenneth Holmes came to America. Problems with their German ethnicity affected the family during the 1900s, after World War II. When people with German heritage were in America and tried to speak German language or practice any of their traditions, people would harass them. When this was going on with Germans throughout America, they wanted to help the Americans in proving that they were not part of what was going on in World War II. They would help the war by translating and even going undercover spies to help them. During this dark time in America, people were affected by what was happening in the country they came from. So after Kenneth Talley brought his family to America, one of his 4 children was Wilbert Talley. He married Mary, my great-grandparents, who worked in the American motor factories, and they also had 4 children. And one of those children was another Wilbert Talley, which was my grandfather. Wilbert Talley was a dentist. He actually served in the Air Force in the 101st Airborne Unit as a medic as a sergeant in the Korean War, and then later became a first lieutenant dentist in India during the Korean War. Later, he married my grandma, Joyce Talley. She was an interior decorator, and they had 4 kids together. And one of those kids was my mom, Kathy Talley, and soon to be Kathy Stevens. Next, we're going to look into my grandma's side of the family. That is my mom's mother. I also will refer to her as Nana. and her maiden name was Sanderson. Here's a photo of my Nana on the right at my sister's wedding, and then also on the left is my uncle, Ricky, who is her son. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this is my grandpa. My uncle and my grandpa were identical. It just blew my mind finding all these old photos of my grandpa and how much he looked like him. Alright, let's get back to the Sanderson's family history. In the early 1849s, we actually started in Liverpool, England, where Thomas and Addie Humes worked at a factory that produced iron and metal for the railroads. They decided to move to America. They chose to come to America because there was a lot more jobs working for the railroad here. They first settled in Boston, Massachusetts, and opened a factory for the railroads. Then they decided to move to Chicago, Illinois to open a second factory. There they had 3 children. One of those children's name was Thomas Humes. He later married Ruth, which was my Nana's grandmother. He worked in his father's factory in Chicago, Illinois, and they had 4 children. One of those child's name was Fernliefa. This was my Nana's mom. Fernliefa married George Sanders, which were my Nana's parents. George was a farmer from Norway, and when he came to America, he managed a mattress factory. George Sanderson was born in Folkestad, Norway. His parents came to America with 12 children, losing one in their travels to Wisconsin. The Sandersons picked Wisconsin because the agricultural land for farming was in prime property. Norway did not have enough land for farming, since the land was rocky and the area was struck by crop failure, similar to why the Talley side came to Wisconsin. My Nana talks that other reasons is that George's dad wanted a better life for his 12 children, with the limits of jobs he had problems with, which in the long run helped George Sanderson with being able to take over his father's farm and get a job at the mattress factory to support his family, accomplishing his father's goal when coming to America. Here's a photo of my Nana and her sisters. The Sanderson family was known as a humble, hard-working, and peaceful family who kept to themselves. Sandersons were all taught that education was very important to create a stable and happy life for their family. Jobs that we see on the side of family are more principals and teachers and assortment of other jobs. Some Norwegian holiday traditions, those were very important to the Sanderson family and most people from Norway. Similar to our Christmas traditions, but their own twist. Most important traditions in Norway is called Little Christmas Eve, December 23rd. Families would spend time decorating Christmas trees, making gingerbread houses, and eating hot rice pudding, which I explained in my Heritage post earlier this semester. It is that sugar, cinnamon, and butter rice pudding. But I did not know they hid an almond in the pudding cup, and if you found the almond in your pudding cup, you won a pig. That is something my grandma did not continue on when she started making this pudding for us. On December 24th, most of the families would spend their days in church and then home for family dinner with all their relatives. The pudding is definitely a tradition that we continued and that I plan to continue on with my children. With it being similar to American traditions, there were no problems with the world's views on the Norwegians' ethnicity traditions. With them being strong Catholics, they blended right in with the rest of the Catholics practicing families during Christmas time in America, no matter where the families came from. So Fernliefa and George had 2 children, and one of those were my Nana, Joyce Talley. My Nana was an interior decorator and a professional rose-mauling artist of the Norwegian artwork. Later, she met my grandpa, Wilbur Talley, and this is them on their wedding day. So, enough about my mom's side of the family. Let's go to my dad's side. This is Robert Stevens, my dad. Now, I don't have a lot about my Stevens side of my family because my grandma suffers from dementia, so it's hard for her to remember all the details like my nana on my mom's side was able to share with me in full details. The two people on the left side of the couch is my grandma Joyce Stevens and my grandpa James Stevens. This is one of the few photos I have of my grandpa Stevens. I actually never got to meet him. He passed away before I was born. To start, my grandma Stevens, Joyce Stevens, maiden name was Wilson. So my grandma's parents' name were Earl and Florence Wilson. They worked on an apple farm in Waupaca, Wisconsin. Earl also worked at a trading post, which was the last stop from Milwaukee to Michigan, which took all the miners to the mines up in Upper Michigan. Next, my grandpa Stevens, his parents were named Asa and Esther Stevens. They actually owned land, which we know is as High Cliff State Park, but they ended up selling it to the state of Wisconsin a long time ago. They had 4 children, and one of those kids was James Stevens, my grandpa. Asa's parents came to America from Germany, could not figure out names, but Asa was a farmer from the stories my dad said. His dad was a farmer, which Asa took over. They had 6 children. Here's a photo of my grandma, Joyce Stevens, and her 7 children. The boy, second from the left, is actually my father as a young boy. My grandpa Stevens actually worked at the Appleton paper mill, and my grandma, Joyce, worked at the local bank. Almost there, guys. Now that I've gone through all my family history with my different ethnic backgrounds and where I came from, my favorite part about my family history is this young guy here, my dad, and this beauty right here, my mom, fell in love and started a family together. My mom is a dental hygienist and my dad is a chemist. They had 4 beautiful children together, and that is me all the way to the right, and that is where I come from and how it all began. I really appreciate and thank you for this opportunity for learning about my family history. I really did enjoy it, and all the things I thought I knew, but I really didn't until my Nana was able to help me through this experience. Thank you for your time and watching my presentations. I can't wait to hear your feedback on how I did. Have a great day, everybody.